Yeah, I can imagine the fascinating thing from a coaching standpoint when you're dealing with running and meditation is you see the difference that it makes in the running, but you also see the difference that it makes to the person.
Exactly.
And that's kind of hit, I suppose, maybe you could speak to that through the lens of the Olympics this summer, because in Japan there was obviously a fantastic Olympics that we all followed very closely, but the overriding theme was mental health of these athletes, right? And I'm sure you probably have some opinions about that and why athletes are valuing that so much again.
Well, I think it's a good thing, and people don't realize. I've had like really good friends who trained, like my friend Marty LaCourie, who was our best middle distance runner for a long time. He was a freshman when I was a senior, and he was a freshman in high school when I was a senior. He was the second guy to run under the 4-minute mile, and he would always get hurt right before the Olympics. And like with the U.S. system, you have to make the team. First 3 people make the team. And that's such a stressful thing. We had half miler Donovan Braden that was the best guy in the 800 all year, and then in the final he couldn't run. He just kind of fell apart. He ran, a kind of slow race, and I think it's the people really don't realize the pressure, and that was why Percy was so great. Percy was great for a lot of reasons, but one of the things is that he tell people this hasn't got anything to do with, running a fast time, running a 57 last lap. It was like, be yourself, be an artist, run out of yourself, and that's why people saw Herb Elliott run. He would sprint at all different times during the race because he would just express himself as he was, and that's why Percy said the runner is an artist. And so that's why that his philosophy was great, because you'd run around Port C where his training was and have statues of Goethe and places like this, and it talked to you about how the world started and what energy really is. And then if you go to the line in a race with that attitude, you're apt to run better, and you're apt to not get these feelings, because with Simone Biles, it's like as time goes on, people will think more and more she punked out. At first, everybody said, but more and more people are going to say, oh, you should be like Tom Brady or something. You should always come up in a tight spot. There's no space for sort of not doing your best, and that has to change a little bit, because everything's different. I mean, if you get teenage kids, for instance, some are going to really like being competitive, and other kids are going to learn things, but they're going to learn things different than just running fast. And that's. And I mean, Michael Phelps has just been unbelievable talking about his struggles. Now, he always succeeded, but, he went through a lot of, if you make the Olympic team and you do really good, right afterwards, there's an incredible depression because you're training a month to the Olympics, 4 weeks to the Olympics, 3 weeks to the Olympics. And you peak for that moment, and then it's over. And what do you do? That's Michael Phelps. He was great when the competition was going, but then afterwards he didn't know how to interpret it. And I think that the big thing for young people especially is, how do they interpret their experience? That's why you got to talk to young people and get them to realize that it's not just the time. What did you experience? What are the pitfalls? What are the successes?
I think there's a dark side to long distance running, that it attracts quite extreme characters by nature. And a lot of us, and Mike knows the runners that we work with as well, they're very extreme characters. And we are dealing with things like addiction, and we're dealing with all sorts of things, alcoholism, and normally people, these types of people, and myself included, find our way into long distance running as a reprieve. Whether we're running away from ourselves, that's probably a podcast in itself, but I meet a lot of these characters that share these characteristics, and I think long distance running does have a way to build kind of people who are in pain in some ways, to be frank, together, because it is such a painful expression, as Mike calls it, an art to perfect, and one that you will never over the course of 26.2 miles. And I think it's not that it's easier for someone or harder for someone, it's hard for everyone, but it's really how you relate to that pain, and also how ultimately, as you say, how you relate to competition. And it's very hard to put competition in a box in this society today, and as Mike says, to understand the role that it plays for you, because historically it's not a bad thing. It's something that we've used throughout time to better society, right? Its fundamentals are based on capitalism, which is something I agree with. So it's not instinctually a bad thing, but we have built society in a way where we start to become boxed into a corner, whereas Mike says in this Olympics, if all we value is that one thing, it's attachment, right? And attachment is pain to anything, whether that's winning or someone or an object. So I think competitiveness in sport has been kind of put into that domain, and as Mike says, it's a reset is needed, but not to say competition is bad, but to allow all of us, as Mike's book does, and as his students recognize, to be able to be in charge of competition, to be able to choose it, and choose when you want it and when you don't. And I think that, there are many reasons why we're in this situation: sponsorship models, ultimately money, and capitalism, of course. So we have to be very strong in finding solutions for that. And District Vision is a solution to that, right? It's a vehicle that explores and promotes that, and hopefully exercises the growth of this different approach to running and meditation. But what will that be for the future will be very interesting to understand, the role of this work and this body of work, and how young people continue to relate to it. And I think that's where I always kind of come back maybe to Mike, who I know is also working with young people again, and maybe a question for Mike. I mean, if there was a young person, right, in Japan today who regardless of their background or their starting point, what would be the one thing that you might ask them or explain or give to them to start them on this journey? And then that could be something that maybe helped you in the past, or that could be something you've seen throughout your years of teaching, perhaps.
Right.
Is that a question for Kyo?
No, for you.
You.
Well, I was just thinking, I was trying to visualize this person, and I think that your culture is really prone to, like I said in this introduction, is people respect, the masters and what it entails. But I would try to get a young person, and I'd try to take a different approach with them. I'd like to push them running for a while, push them, and then all of a sudden back off, and then work on the mental capacity, and minimize the running for a little bit, and then try to bring them back in together, back and forth. Especially if we can get someone. I have a kid now; he's in the 6th grade. He runs so beautifully, and I have to be a little careful about what I project onto him. I say, hey, maybe you can be Steve Prefontaine by the time you grow up. No, but that's not the good thing. So his name is Luke, so I call him Cool Hand Luke. And one of the things that my Joe Newton, the great coach who Sebastian Coe always trained with when he came to he's passed away a couple of years ago. He'd have 100 kids in his cross-country team, and they would all have nicknames. And I find I do that also, something that makes the kids stand out. If it was a kid like that, I would really focus on that, the dichotomy of things, is maybe you really push on the running, and then all of a sudden, hey, let's do a sashimi. Let's meditate for 3-4 hours. Let's see where your head goes. And then let's try to bring where your head went into the running and sort of go back and forth. It's like Percy's idea running past the Goethe and the statues in Portsea, because that's where you want us to kind of grab that ethereal kind of thing. And everybody would, when they express it, the thing is that you hear it. It's like anything, you hit a bell, right? And the bell has that right sound to it. Oh, that's the right. It's just that, like talking to young people and stuff, and you've hit that bell and they're saying the things. So what do? Like when Max spoke to Michael Murphy, I like the best part he wrote that he said, I don't overcoach, and I don't overcoach. I try to just let the thing come out of the person and then guide them through. And I think that's the only way. That's the only way to bring the best out of a person.